Good afternoon. Welcome to the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee for Thursday, September the 4th, 2025. We'll begin with a roll call if we could. Mr. Clerk.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Present.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Acting Mayor Palladino.
Present.
Councillor Campbell.
I am here.
Committee is here. Quorum is established.
The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge offers respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their homes. We'll get the adoption of the agenda. This is from Councillor Crowson. Be it resolved that the September 4th, 2025 agenda of the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting be adopted as presented. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Chair. I know we've had a few more correspondence added, but everybody has access to that on the agenda right now? Okay. If that's true, I will call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Okay. On to the consent agenda from Acting Mayor Palladino. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee, 1, approve the minutes of the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting held on May 1st, 2025, and authorize the Chair and the City Clerk designate to sign the same, and 2, receive for information the status of directed resolutions of September 4th, 2025. Acting Mayor Palladino.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That's approved. We'll begin with presentations from the University of Lethbridge South Campus Outline Plan. First speaker, Janet Gutzell, Senior Subdivision Planner. If you could come forward. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of Assets and Infrastructure, SPC. The application before you is to consider the land use concept for a new outline plan in West Lethbridge on the University of Lethbridge South Campus lands. The University South Campus lands are located in West Lethbridge as indicated by the red star on the map. The area has been planned by the engineering consulting company WSP on behalf of the University of Lethbridge Business Corporation. Representatives from both organizations are here today. The plan area consists of approximately 35 hectares of undeveloped land lying south of the university, north of Riverstone, and east of Varsity Village. The University South Campus Outline Plan was developed in accordance with the policies and objectives outlined in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and the Municipal Development Plan. There is no area structure plan for this land. The land use concept as presented complies with the policies in both documents regarding promoting varied and affordable housing, sustainable neighborhood design, and integrating commercial development in residential neighborhoods. As you can see from the concept plan, the area is located south of the University Stadium. However, the stadium is not included in the plan. The area includes amenity space for future residents and is connected to the Riverstone neighborhood through a number of pathways. The hatched area at the east end of the development is referred to as the Special Study Area and will require further investigation and an amendment to this outline plan to proceed in the future. Our evaluation and analysis is on the slide above, and I will point out that staff do not have any concerns that the existing infrastructure can handle the additional load from the proposed development, excepting the special study area. Future details can be found in the land use concept document. Next slide, please. Thanks. The neighborhood notification covered an area of 100 meters around the plan boundary, and 172 letters were sent out. The distance was increased from the standard 60 meters to notify property owners on the west side of University Drive. The proposal was also advertised in the August 16th and 23rd editions of the Lethbridge Herald to provide any residents with the opportunity to speak at this meeting. I communicated with 8 residents. Most of the questions were around the SPC process, neighborhood notification, traffic, specifically how it will impact existing areas, and environmental impacts. The developer conducted additional engagement to which they can speak to. Our conclusion and recommendation to Assets and Infrastructure SPC is on the slide above. Thank you for your time.
Kelly, owner of MSK Developments, for his presentation.
Good afternoon, committee members. Michael Kelly. I'm going to take a little background step here of how this all came about. The University of Lethbridge deemed at some point that the South Campus lands was surplus to their needs. In doing so, the administration created a business case that was presented to the Board of Governors of the University of Lethbridge, who approved that. Thereafterwards, the same business case went to the province for review, and they approved that. Similar to other post-secondary institutions like U of C, U of A, Keano College, University of Manitoba, UBC, they've all run into the same opportunity of taking surplus lands to generate extra revenue that will go in to fund their core areas, being research, academic, and student support areas. After the approval from the province, the university formed the University of Lethbridge Business Corporation, which has its own board, own policies, and they recently, in April, appointed a new CEO, being Michael Kelly. And I'm very proud and happy to represent the corporation and move forward with the planning and with assistance from WSP and the city administration to create this new neighborhood plan. The South Campus development will, it's approximately 35 hectares. It will be a $200 million investment in the community. There will be approximately 1,100 units that will be developed in the form of 400 townhouses, 460 apartment buildings, both purpose-built rental and ownership opportunities. It will allow for the opportunity for potentially some single-family dwellings in the future as well. The population for this will be 2,200 residents. If you compare that to Riverstone and its outline plan, which is on the City of Lethbridge website, the Riverstone neighborhood will have a population of 4,350, so it's about half the size population-wise. The commercial development that we're anticipating, around 14 acres, will more than likely see 3 large CRUs and 10 small business units that will give the opportunity for things as grocery stores, coffee shops, and other places to socialize in the future. Not a IMAX theater, by the way. Part of our due diligence was to do a market analysis. Back a year and a half ago, we've hired an external company to do that for us. They deemed that the vacancy rate in Lethbridge was 2.8%. Now the vacancy rate is down to 0.6% in Lethbridge, meaning that there's a high need for multifamily purpose-built rentals everywhere in our community, not just in West Lethbridge or not just in this development. As far as property tax revenue or revenues to the city, we anticipate, based on today's mill rate, property tax will generate at full build-out $2.5 million in property tax, and off-site levy contribution will range between $9.6 to $9.8 million based on today's rates. It is anticipated that this development will take 15 to 20 years to develop. There's approximately 15 phases, which could be a phase per year, but depending on how the market's going, we'll see what happens there. We did, and during our open houses, we promoted the City of Lethbridge outline plan process, which we followed to the letter, I'd say, even more so. Lots of technical studies that we can address during question period. Things like environmental studies, geotechnical studies, environmental biophysicals. Quite a bit of public engagement. The requirement in the outline plan process is to have one public engagement. We did a bit more, but if you want to ask me about that, I'll be more than happy to expand on that and what people said. The other big one that's near and dear to the heart of the university itself and also to the corporation is our Indigenous engagement. We had elders come out to the site on 3 occasions early this year to walk the site, to tell us what was going on on the lands, both in past, present, and in the future. And they gave us some recommendations, which the ULBC, which the University of Lethbridge Business Corporation has reviewed, and will be following all the recommendations to a T as well. And I'll just highlight a few of them. There is a site that is there that we discovered through a historical review. They've asked us not to disclose the site. They are worried that it will be vandalized. So it's outside of our, it's not in our development area, it's on the edge of it. But in the future, if they decide they want to have further protection or enhance it, we'll continue communication with them and honor their wishes. The other thing that was interesting is in their review of native vegetation, where they found the sensitive indigenous plants that were important to them are actually below the Top of Bank. It's all in the coulee area. The South Campus, 80 acres of it had been farmed. 20 acres on towards the Top of Bank hadn't been farmed, and that's as administration showed in the special study area. Can you go to the next slide? That everything is outside of the boundary area and below. The intent of the university is not to turn this over to the city as environmental reserve, but is to retain the below Top of Bank area so they can continue their research efforts in this area, which have been going on for some time. The special study area, I just want to be clear about this. There's some constraints that are on the site, servicing constraints. What we're focusing in on here is the other 80 acres for approval. There's a sanitary limitation off-site that constrains other areas of development in the West Lethbridge. It has been identified in the off-site levy budgets. Right now, the budgets are under review and projects are under review as we speak. So until such time that that constraint is lifted, that will restrain this area from being developed. And also, more important to me, as we move out towards the coulee edge and the sensitivity of the coulees, is we want to make sure that we have a very clear and setback area, not just for worried about houses slumping into the coulee. It's more about protecting the coulee itself and the vegetation and the wildlife that cruise that corridor. With that, I think I'll conclude my presentation. I'll be open to questions from the committee.
We'll get to questions from council, but first, are there any members of the audience that would like to make a presentation or speak on this matter today? Yes, this gentleman right here. Right there, yeah. Step. Give us your name, and a reminder: you have 5 minutes. Thank you. Give us your name.
Jacob Ackinger.
Okay.
And I'll begin by admitting that I'm not entirely against the South Outline Plan, but I do want to flag a number of concerns here. I live on Riverstone Boulevard, right across from the proposed development, so it's of keen concern to me. To begin, I want to point out that the University of Lethbridge Business Corporation held a number of open house events over the past year, and I appreciate that. But if you look at the information and illustrations related to the plan available on their website, you will see promises of community gathering spaces, even images of people cross-country skiing. Yet when you actually look at the concept map, the promised community gardens and ski trails, surprise, surprise, are nowhere to be seen. There is some green space, but these spaces are small. In fact, the overall area is small. I think it was indicated it was 35 hectares. From my front door to the stadium on the other side, that's a 2-minute walk. We're talking about a very tight little spot. So I suppose as a question, to frame it as a question, why are the images in the actual plan so very different? Obviously, it's to get residents on board with this, but I'd like to see more realistic images of what I will see from my front window. There's been mention of the archaeological and environmental surveys of the area, as well as Indigenous consultation. I look forward to hearing more about these. I think the details are important. I often look out at the field, and I know there are protected species there, prairie rattlers and American badgers, and I feel their presence needs to be protected. So I look forward to hearing that information. I realize there's a housing crisis in Lethbridge, and I realize that Lethbridge probably needs high-density houses, high-density residential areas to meet this need. But the density in this area will be, I think, a problem. At one of the open houses, and I learned that there will be over 1,000 dwellings in this area, with possibly 2 to 3 people living in each dwelling. Now, I kind of calculate that a little bit higher than Mr. Kelly does. I see this as being an area approximately the same as the Riverstone population, which is in excess of 3,000 people, meaning that it is roughly equivalent in the number of dwellings and the population. But once again, this area is very small. And with only 2 entrances and exits to this neighborhood, one being close to the stadium, the other one being on Riverstone Boulevard, I see traffic flow problems. And I see serious traffic flow problems because there is another development further down on Riverstone Boulevard, at the end of the boulevard. When that is completed, the traffic situation will worsen. And this is a concern because this is a very popular, well-used school bus route with many school-aged children meeting buses there every day. So I think that there is some concern around safety and traffic flow. Lastly, while it would be good to have a neighborhood grocery store in the commercial or mixed-use zone, I'm concerned about what types of businesses might set up shop in this area. As a homeowner, I did not sink my life savings to buy a house so that I might have a view of the McDonald's golden arches rising above a parking lot. So to frame that as a question, I'd like reassurances as to what kind of businesses will be allowed in this area, because I think it's safe to say that some are more desirable than others. I would like to see greater accountability, greater truthfulness around some of the images, and I have to admit, I would like to see them go back to the drawing boards. Currently, I prefer the field to what I see up on the screens today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to make the presentation? Yes, sir, right in front. Come forward, state your name. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, my name's Mike Benishowski. I too live on Riverstone Boulevard. Bear with me, I'm nervous speaking in front of people.
Think of us as all being naked. And now I'm scared.
Then I might leave. I also live right across the street from the development, so I'm on the south side of Riverstone Boulevard. And when I look at the plan, I too am just concerned about the traffic that we're going to see increase. I'm not opposed to the development. I just can't understand why they wouldn't have a second exit onto University Drive that has a dual lane and it's not emptying immediately into a already established community of Riverstone. Because I too, when I thought of the numbers, which they would not give me at the open houses, they had no idea, they said, but now they have an idea. And if you're going to put 2,200 more people, that's the minimum, and say half of them choose to use one of the two exits, well, that's putting 1,200 cars more going in and out on Riverstone Boulevard. And they did allude to that they needed a second emergency exit. And when I look at that, I think, so the emergency exit would be into Riverstone, where you'd have to turn right to go up to turn right onto University Drive. That to me seems like more of a step than having two larger exits onto University Drive, so that the people that are now going to be living in the South Campus don't have the option of, we have to go into a smaller road that will also be congested, because even today it's congested. At school pickup and drop-off times for St. Patrick's, it's a lineup of cars moving forward. And also, it just really looks like it's going to make driving through there a lot more difficult, which nobody wants in their neighborhood, of course. And I understand that there has to be progress. But even today, like we don't have a garage on the front of our house. Instead, it's an alley garage, and that's where the parking is for the most part, and that's where I use. So I have to come down the alley, turn, and then turn onto Riverstone Boulevard. And it can be a long wait even today. And I'm just concerned that add another however many, possibly 1,000 residents, and that will start to just be a backup of cars all the time waiting to turn. And especially if they're starting to come off University Drive as well, to come down Riverstone to turn into this development. And that's really my concern, is that I don't think that's been well thought enough through, and I just cannot understand why they can't have their second exit on University Drive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to make a presentation? Gentleman standing up now. Got up first. Go ahead. And also give your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Booth. Full disclosure, I retired from the university after almost 31 years. So I have a great respect for the institution. However, I live in Varsity Village, across from where the commercial development is. I have a big concern about having commercial development directly adjacent to that Varsity Village area. I saw a report not too long ago that talked about crime on the west side, and in fact the area around Varsity Village had the highest crime rate across the west side, and I think that needs to be addressed in the overall consideration when we increase the density of population in that area. The other issue that I note was that I appreciate that Riverstone was afforded a berm, trees, and a walkway directly adjacent to Riverstone Boulevard between the university property currently and that subdivision. And I certainly would hope that the council would consider that the university should afford Varsity Village similar consideration in providing a berm that runs parallel to the University Drive on the university property that's of similar configuration that serves to mitigate the traffic and the, quite frankly, what looks like it's going to be a large parking lot and a whole bunch of commercial development. I would hope that the university and council would consider the residents in Varsity Village equal to or greater than import in building such a berm, rather than prioritizing commercial development and the revenues that would go with that. So Those are my primary issues. Of course, as you build a parking lot, and being down the street from the current university stadium, there's light pollution, there's noise pollution. All of that's going to be exaggerated and amplified by additional, aside from the traffic issues which other individuals have brought up. I think that needs to be brought into consideration in terms of the type of technologies that will serve to mitigate that light pollution and, as I mentioned, the berm, also the traffic and the noise pollution, which is inevitably going to increase. And we have seen increase as there's been further development. The last thing I wanted to ask about was whether council had considered, I understood that originally a plan for development of commercial was down towards the end of University Drive as it turns eastward into the canyons, and that the space that is directly west at that point of University Drive, which I think was perhaps going to be hooked up eventually with Métis Trail, was going to be the commercial development site. But that's been relocated or perhaps abandoned in favor of the university site. I'm wondering if that juxtaposition of development, commercial development, is more favorable given the fact that there's going to be additional development to the west of the current West Lethbridge configuration, as opposed to burying it right up against the coulees against existing and long-standing developments and residences. Thank you for your time.
We'll continue. Next person who wants to speak. Yes, sir, in the orange. I think that's orange. More salmon. Okay, so more salmon. Swim upstream then, sir.
6 colors.
And 5 minutes as well. State your name, please.
My name is Brian Welpley. I am a resident and I live on Riverstone Boulevard. Just a couple things. Thank you for allowing this, Mr. Kelly. I had some conversations with him at some of the open houses, and I share some of the concerns that I have my fellow neighbors on Riverstone Boulevard. Looking into this, when I started doing some research into this on my own, and all my facts are off the city website's 2023 census that I could have access to. This area is larger than the West Side Safeway Save-On from Gary Drive to Walsh Drive, from Highlands to University. It is a massive area. It's bigger than all of Costco, Walmart, and Home Depot, Best Buy, all that commercial area on the south side. This is a larger area. One of my biggest concerns I have is, again, they're funneling all that traffic onto Riverstone Boulevard. There's no accountability right now on the paid parking, or no mention of the paid parking that the U of L currently uses at the stadium. That is student parking, that is full, that is also uses that parking. They have not been accounting that. Mr. Kelly, when he did his presentation, he also brought up how it's 2,200 people-ish, but that's only on the current 25. But there's more potential for the extra 10 hectares to increase that value. So right now we have a quarter of the 100 or so hectares of Riverstone with about 50% of the population. So it's a very dense situation. I asked, and according to the literature, this has been based off other communities and developments similar to this. I do not know of any in this city where the commercial / area with high density or medium low density feed directly onto the front lawn, so to speak, driveway of a road in the community. The closest I can think of is the West Highlands area, where those apartment buildings go on to West Highlands Drive, starting from the Gary Drive and up. But those actually are medium residential areas, and they don't have driveways. This isn't all going onto that one section. It has multiple egress points. There's no egress points. The university has never considered using the road that actually is Parkway Road. If you take McGill Drive, go east into the university property, that's a paved road. Why are they not funneling their traffic out that way? Which is still zoned, in my opinion, or according to what I saw, still future urban development. So why are they not funneling it that way rather than bleeding all the traffic away from our current bridge, away from everything else, into their neighboring units? stats are 1.8 to 2.8 people per unit. It's not a family. You're going to be having 1 to 2 vehicles per unit. It's going to be a massive drain. Our University Drive, as you know, it stops, the 3 lanes of both ways stop at Aperture for the funneling of the university population. The city is going to have to widen 3 lanes all the way down. There's going to be a significant increase in traffic. I don't know if this went double laned. I think it was 2018 when that was expanded. I don't think we have the proper resources. I don't think they've actually taken into account the volume of level of Riverwood Manor, which is on the very west end of Riverstone. I don't know how that community there will actually be able to exit with the level of volume there. When I did bring it up to Mr. Kelly at the last one, I think it was at the church on the west side, he had said, he brought up I think it was a Crossings. Was it kind of a model similar like that? There's just no comparison anywhere in the city where there's such high density people, high traffic people, 2 egresses, which is not even that because it's not calculating the stadium, which is already overflowed. There's actually overflow parking right now for that stadium, for events. And my worry is if it's modeled this way, we'll have another incident similar to what happened at the Crossings with the small child. So my only other concern is because of the special area that they're still under and being evaluated, it's a cart before the horse. That's a landlocked area. If you approve this right now, whatever's approved now is going to obviously, the only way to work it is the plan that you have right now will dictate exactly what they can and will be able to do in the future in that special study area because there's no choice. If it's fully approved, they have to come through that neighborhood. And that is another 1,000 vehicles, people coming through that again onto Riverstone Boulevard. There's no plan whatsoever to deviate traffic away from a family community. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think I saw another hand. Someone else who wants to step forward, sir? Once again, 5 minutes. State your name.
My name is Daryl Stewart. I live in the Riverside Bay Crescent. So I'm not directly affected by, per se, the traffic, but I do want to support prior presenters here today. With my knowledge of living in 14 different communities in southern and central Alberta, knowing the impact of developers coming into communities and the community or the council buying into the development without giving due consideration to the concerns that are raised today, especially about access. I can tell you I just relocated here from Okotoks, Alberta, and there's nothing more special about this town than the ability to be able to drive from north to south, east to west in 15 to 20 minutes in either direction. Limiting access in Okotoks was, access in Okotoks to schools was limited, 1 or 2 locations, access points in. I fully share what's being shared here today. 2 access points is just not enough. Please give consideration to what is being said here today. Safety, I think, drives this all. Emergency services. If you have 1 access point, heaven forbid, blocked because of an emergency, you have 1 direction out and in. We know what the impact of the mishap on the present bridge construction and what happened recently with the underbelly of the bridge system has had for traffic impact. So that being said, is there any, I failed to see anything as far as future and or pushed up development for a 3rd bridge with the, I guess, south access. And I would like to have more information on that as to when that potentially could happen. As we know, we have a prime minister in office today who is talking about a lot of development in our country. I think this might be a good time to press him for some monies to maybe push that date forward to have that third bridge option available. Thank you.
Are there any more members of the audience who would wish to? Yes, step forward, please. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks. My name is Darlene Benishowski.
Can you speak right into the mic?
Sure. Is that okay if I bring it down? Okay, my name, no, I don't want to picture anybody in the nude here, but I'm a little bit nervous too, so please forgive me. My name's Darlene Benishowski. So I just have a couple of things. I know that everyone's covered a lot of the information already and the concerns. There's a few things fundamentally that bother me. One of the things is that when we were approached at the first, second, and third open house, it was all about a new concept that's going to be used in Lethbridge, and the concept's been used before at UBC, U of C, University of Manitoba, etc. But what I've not seen put together is something that talks about or discusses the inner working of that concept, working in those centers and comparing it to our center. So that causes me a little bit of concern because, for example, I looked at the U of C. It's a great concept, but the U of C, where they use that same land, is furnished with lots of bus service, lots of LRT service. Its main arteries, there are many main, like Crowchild Trail, 16th Ave, Stony Trail. There's many arteries that come out of it that support that. And for that reason, I say, okay, if you have a dense population and you have arteries to support that traffic flow, I understand that. One of my biggest concerns is in Lethbridge, in Riverstone area, is that we have a lot of arteries that we're supporting all on that west side if there is an emergency there. So we have Paradise, which is growing, Riverstone, which they're about to open 2 or 3 new phases. We have Sunridge, we have Mountain Heights, and Varsity kind of as an offshoot. And what causes me concern is to add 2,200 more people on University Drive in McMaster, all to get up onto Whoop-Up Drive should we have an emergency. And we see that in many communities, that's very possible. So that causes me a lot of concern. And also, of course, I live on Riverstone Boulevard. I have grave concern with the traffic there because ever since they put the lights in on Riverstone and University, that is used as a corridor. And when I spoke with the City Hall about that, they said, well, Riverstone Boulevard was always supposed to be a main corridor for traffic, which I understand that. However, if you're adding all those extra people in to use those corridors, including people from Paradise, Sunridge, other areas that want to come into that space, the new space, if there is viable commercial businesses in there where maybe they want to get groceries or something, that causes a lot of concern. We have children in the neighborhood, and now already I see people drive by at 60, 70 kilometers an hour. I've almost gotten hit on the crossroads. I know lots of people that have gotten almost hit on the crossroads because it is as straightforward and people go through there. So, and I understand they need another emergency exit. So to me, I look at them off McGill Road and the Parkway. If it's a university development, why don't they take that other entrance through there and keep it there? So those are just a few concerns I have, but thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Again, anyone else wishes to make a presentation? Yes, step forward, sir.
My name is Kevin Cairns. I live in the Stonecrest area. So this doesn't impact me really that directly. I don't have a huge problem with the development. As a lot of people have raised concerns here, it's a lot with access and the congestion it could cause in Riverstone Boulevard. The plans that you guys all see, and I've only heard it once, is the commercial is going to also have an access onto a right-in, right-out access onto University. Well, I think a lot of people are going to cut through there regardless if the congestion ends up getting more on either of the other two proposed accesses. When I went to one of the public hearings, I was told that there had been a traffic impact study, but I hadn't really seen it or heard much into it. But I was told that you didn't really need the access onto Riverstone Boulevard, but the city insisted on it. And when I talked to the city, and I understand what they're talking about, and I keep hearing this thing, emergency vehicles. And people here have talked about emergency vehicles. But emergency vehicles can use an emergency access. And obviously, that's not going to be used very much. So that's mainly my concerns. One of the other concerns I had was, people talk about it was published in the Herald, the meetings and stuff. The only reason I even heard about any of those meetings coming up was because I belong to the Riverstone Ring and I just saw it on there. So I finally went to one that I could attend. And one of the things Councillor Middleton Hope, he was at that last one I was at. And I said, well, you should put signs up. And I know this city, I've worked in other cities, and you don't have, by your regulations, you don't have to put development signs up saying, oh, there's going to be a public hearing. I know this is not like a public hearing like for rezoning and stuff. But they put signs up and they notify people. It goes forward to rezoning that there should be some signs put up there just to notify people, at least give them a heads up what's going on. That's about all I have. Thanks.
We have another, have you already spoken?
Yes, it's a follow-up just to something that he was told.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We need to keep to one time up. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Yes, in the back. State your name. You've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Beth Cormier, and I did write a letter, but I just want to reiterate a point I made just because it has come up kind of a couple times. But with the idea about the parkway or about the two exits, one comment I made, and it was again made by Brian and another speaker, but the Parkway Road that goes into University is only used for local traffic. I know it's part of the university, but I think if they want this to be a successful development and to have good relationships with the neighbors, then I think they really need to look at Parkway Road and look at, back in the trees there where it seems to be underused, putting an access in there. So I just wanted to, again, reiterate that point. I think it should go back to the university for consultation about that access. Thank you.
Okay. Any more people who wish to express their concerns? Once again, anyone else wishes to speak? And for the third time, I see no one. So we'll open it up for questions now. I see we have some in the queue, and I know, Mr. Kelly, if you could come up, I know I've got a few questions that I'll ask you right off the bat, if that's okay. Just based on what we've been hearing here from the concerned citizens, I just wondered if you could address a few of them, mainly of course, the density in the area, the traffic flow and the emergencies and all of that sort of, if you can address those concerns that you've heard as well. Or is there someone you wanted to give?
I'll address what I can, but
okay.
I think some of the other experts around need to address
okay.
things. First of all, the special study area, just to make it very clear, when that comes forward, that will add 730 people to the total count. of 2,200, taking up to 2,900 people in total. All the roads, internal roads, will be designed to handle the special study area coming if and when it comes on. So it won't, we won't under-design it or construct it as we move along in the development. Do you have a pointer or a cursor or something? Does that do anything? One of the citizens pointed out about right-in, right-outs. It is on a land use concept design. We don't show these things because it's not. This is just land use concept. But our full intent is when in this commercial area is to have a right-in, right-out here. And because we're moving the overflow parking lot, we're going to expand this parking lot north and out towards in this area here and have another right-in, right-out. And that's very important because when there are events on, like Friday Night Lights, the football games, what happens now is there's a big bottleneck that occurs at the main entrance coming in here. And if we can alleviate it through having other exit points, that's what our intent is. This right-in, right-out will be owned by the university. It's not part of the development, but there'll be a flow through the parking lot that will allow access to that right-in, right-out. We are in discussions with the university right now with Aperture Parkway. That's what it's called, which is the road that's people have been talking about to the north. There's a potential for a multi-use sports facility to go in here that will have connections from this road potentially right up to that Aperture Parkway in the future. And in the future with future development and expansion of the student housing area there's another opportunity to provide access through up to Aperture from this internal road system here. As far as, I'm sorry.
I mean, traffic flow is a big thing. Emergency access is another thing. Density. Do you have confidence that those things can be overcome as you move forward?
Well, I have confidence because we've employed some very smart people from WSP, but also it was reviewed by the city experts, and the city experts gave us feedback, and we made adjustments throughout the planning process to make sure that things were met, and that there can be a safe flow of traffic and pedestrians and bicycles through the neighborhood and to the adjacent neighborhoods.
Who are those? Is there someone here that can address that? Some from the city who would like to take that on?
I can take that on. So,
oh, yes, thank you.
This land use concept is just one part of the outline plan. There are two other additional parts. One is called a technical elements document, which, if you're familiar with outline plans, was sort of the body of the outline plan that talked about how you would service with sanitary, storm, water, and roadways and parks. And then there's also a section for appendices. So all the reports that Michael had referenced, the geotech report, the biophysical report, all those kinds of assessments that have been done will form the appendices. So those two additional parts will be approved by staff once, providing that City Council approves the land use concept. So that's kind of the process. But like Michael mentioned, those reports have been done and the work has happened. It's just not part of the council process.
I'll move it over to other questions. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate all of the presentations, Mr. Kelly and the folks from the neighborhood in particular. I've been to 4 of the consultation meetings, and I'm still hearing new questions, so I think that's probably a good thing. This question, although Mr. Kelly has answered most of the ones in regards to access and egress to the property, there was a question that was raised that I will ask the city manager directly in regards to development of properties south of the university complex. So we're talking about down into the canyons, down into Paradise Canyon. All of these areas are continuing to grow and to develop. A question arose out of the discussions today about increased pressure on University Drive and then compounded by the potential of up to somewhere in the vicinity of 2,200 or 2,900, Mr. Kelly, ultimately when the university property is fully built out over the next 20 years. But we are looking at substantial growth south. So how will that be accommodated in terms of our development plans over the course of the next couple of years?
I'll look to Mr. Sanchez to speak to your question, Councillor.
Thank you.
So I will start, and then I will have Mr. Sanaman that is here today from the Transportation Department to speak about the traffic flow and the traffic studies that have been completed for this area. When we typically look at the outline plans, there are outline plans for each one of the areas. And the reason why we do those is because they specify what the land use concept and the use, or how many units, densities, and the traffic in each one of those outline plans. When this one was presented, the staff also looked into what is the remaining capacity, not only for the transportation side, but also on the water and the wastewater side. Do we have enough servicing capacity based on the approved outline plans? So whatever we have already approved, if we still have capacity, that is what has been offered and presented to the university to develop the area or the space that they have. Again, when it comes back to the transportation side, I will have Adam to speak about that.
So on the transportation side, they've completed their transportation impact assessment. It's given us a fair bit of information that's going to continue to feed into and inform future functional planning studies, which will feed into and inform future capital improvement projects. We've seen from the functional planning study, or sorry, the traffic impact assessment that yes, at some point we'll need a wider University Drive, but that doesn't even have to do with the development itself. That was in the background conditions. So it's going to have to come up in a functional planning study, eventual widening of University Drive, whether this development proceeds or not.
Okay, so if I can sort of condense what was said, you've indicated that at some point University Drive will be expanded to accommodate the increase in both Riverstone as well as communities to the south. Is that correct?
In the long run, that's the infrastructure need, yes.
All right, because we've got phases 18 and 19 in Riverstone that are now coming online. We have the property, absent Chinook Trail ever going in there, not in my lifetime likely, but at some point that land is going to be developed, plus we have significant growth in communities to the south. So we're already accommodating that. You can assure the public that we're already accommodating that we have a timeline for when we're going to expand those arteries, almost like a stent. We can expand those arteries to accommodate the increase in traffic.
And we'll need a functional planning study, which is kind of the next stage in this whole planning process of the transportation system, to identify exactly when we'll end up needing those.
Okay. My second and final question will be to the city manager as well. One of the gentlemen in the audience brought up Varsity's crime rate and the challenges in regards to not having a berm on the west side of University Drive. I wonder, Mr. Brierley, if you can address that particular question.
Looking at Mr. Sanchez, off the top of my head, no, I unfortunately
And he's
can't.
fresh back from his vacation as well.
Yeah, I'm looking to the team here. Yeah, it's something
I think again, when that was designed, there was no need to have a berm on the west side of University Drive. The east side is because it was a future development. It was not developed.
but on the west side, it's all developed, so there was not really a need at that time. If there is a berm, there is basically I will say to block the view or to create some privacy, but there has been no consideration at this point to build that or need to do it based on the outline plans and the studies that we have in place.
Right. So what we're looking at doing is increasing substantially vehicular traffic along University Drive. We're looking at increasing residential and commercial development on the east side of the roadway, which I think is a great thing. But what we're talking about is the potential impact of all of that growth and development on existing communities, specifically Varsity. So I'm wondering if there is a way that we can consider that moving forward as this plan is developed to accommodate some of the concerns that may occur in adjacent neighborhoods.
So what I will say is there are different ways or methods that we could use to accommodate this, like Mrs. Gehring just reminded me, SEPTED issues or redesigns in terms of what can be done in order to accommodate. When you look at that particular area and looking at the aerial view, there is not so much space available today on the west side to build a berm. I mean, the road, even when you think about that University Drive in the future, we don't know when, could be 15, 20 years down the road, we'll need to have a third lane on each side.
I hope it's sooner than that.
The area that we have today is able to accommodate that additional lane. But after that, there is not enough room to have that berm. There are other tools that we could use, as I mentioned before, and certainly we could use or consider those as we move forward and there is more traffic and more volume through this road to try to prevent those issues that have been mentioned today.
La Canyon Parkway.
Kind of.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Gutt, so let's just go back to the basics here. So we're looking at an outline plan of something that may take 15 to 20 years to develop in 15 phases if permitted. In your field, how often is what you see an outline plan exactly what is built?
I don't know about exactly, but any kind of plan amendment comes to this group and then council. So I think you guys have been familiar. We have done plan updates in the past. Lethbridge does grow slower than a Calgary, for instance, and so there are definitely market changes over the life of an outline plan. But again, any changes would come to council to be approved.
But there could be changes. As the university develops north of this area, there could be changes there. So some of the concerns, because what I'm hearing is people would like to know exactly how this is going to be built, but it's a 20-year project. That's going to take a very long time with changes to market, changes to things, and they're looking for a certainty that maybe we can't provide because this is a 20-year project. Would that be accurate in some cases, that outline plans do not necessarily provide the certainty that the public is looking for that comes later in projects?
I would say that's fair.
Okay, so we're looking at an outline plan maybe differently. Why is there no area structure plan here? How did this not get one? Was it just never thought it was going to be developed?
So because the land was part of the university, it wasn't considered. And then the area that they're looking to develop is quite small. So an area structure plan is usually a couple of quarter sections of land. So to do an area structure plan, you're essentially doing it for the same area that you're doing the outline plan, and that's a bit of a waste of time and effort and doesn't really net you any additional benefits.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, there are some concerns, and you addressed one about how you could eventually connect some of the roads, Parkway Road and Aperture Way. One of the things you didn't address, is there any plans to connect pedestrian or bike or anything between this property and the university? Because nobody has talked about any of that. Will this actually be linked to the university property for anyone who might live here, might shop here to go back and forth? Are we seeing these as separate? Because again, this is only looking at this land, but will there be connections potentially that we don't see?
Thank you very much. Currently, there's a major pathway system that goes between the sports field and connects through to the university campus itself. As we talk with the university itself, we're taking a look at another corridor in here and potentially another corridor that is on what's known as the Boneyard area. So on the university campus itself, they have great value of having pedestrian connectivity. You as City Council have that same value. We have that same value. We want to provide multiple connection points for all modes, if it's bikes, walking, or vehicles.
So, I mean, again, you're building for the general public. You're not building housing for students. But if somebody lived here as a student, theoretically, could they walk to class?
Yes.
So all those potentials are there that may impact traffic in ways we're not actually projecting right now.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll step out right now, Chair.
Councillor Panka.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate being part of the conversation. I'm not on this committee, but I knew this was a big project, and I'm glad members of council can partake in this. Half a life ago, I remember being on council, and we rezoned this whole area called Riverstone, and we thought this would be a really cool idea. Let's do Riverstone, and it was a huge success, and it went a lot quicker than we ever thought. And I'm guessing that this subdivision, if successful, is going to go a lot quicker than it is. I'm going to go by the odds, because when I travel across the west side, I talk to people, they want more shopping. So the people who live on the peripheral, and I walk around this area quite often with my dog and all that, the people in the surrounding area, I'm talking in Mountain Heights, Paradise Canyon, Sunridge, Varsity Village, they're going to be excited about this project. The people that have the concerns, obviously, are the people who are adjacent to it, because it's the unknown. It's the unknown, and I think the concerns are valid. How can you, as a developer, alleviate or help these people get peace of mind? Like, what's the next stage, Mr. Kelly, in addressing some of the concerns that we've heard here, like regards to the traffic? And I know it gets more detailed as the plan goes on. This is very conceptual, so we shouldn't get tied into where are the exact roads and pathways. Where's the next phase where these people who are affected by it can have their voice heard with sincerity? And I know it's always with sincerity, but you know what I'm saying. What's the next stage?
Sure. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because how we got to here, having all these people come in, this was planned by us. We had extra engagement sessions. We just didn't have the one. I've been watching rezonings go on with council and the community, and there's one opportunity to speak. There's one open house, and usually it gets criticized as being a sales session. We first of all started with having an open house that had 144 people show up just to tell them that we're starting the planning session. We just had a bunch of bubbles up on a map to demonstrate what could happen in some connection points throughout the document. There was frustration because there wasn't enough detail. The second time we came through, but had 77 people show up, we had more information and showed where the roads were going to be and what kind of land uses would be considered going into the community. The third session, which had 44 people, why we had the third session is that we wanted to better explain the outline plan process, what's involved in it, all the technical reports, and better explain the Indigenous consultation process that we went through. We didn't think that we did a good enough job, because I feel that part of and why we're here today is to educate people, to give them the information so that they can digest it. We had other sessions with the student union itself. What they're concerned about is more student housing and potential jobs. There's about 10 acres left on the north part of the campus by this current student residents, that there could be more residents built there. Jobs, yes, they'll be in the form of construction or at the commercial retail areas. We had another session for the faculty and staff that had 44 people there, again, to educate, because we were hearing, what's going on there, what's not, or we're concerned about the wildlife, we're concerned about plant species. But all the reports we've completed and shared with the city now, and they've gone through that and are satisfied with the information's there.
Let's just say, we say who's satisfied with the information? You folks? Staff?
Administration.
Okay, administration. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we're satisfied with it. We created it, but they had to review it and make sure that we covered all of our points and what the expectations are. The next steps after an outline plan process will be the actual rezoning. So there'll be another we have another open house, another public hearing, has more certainty about what's going to go in there. As far as like the commercial development, I foresee that that's all single story things. The city, a number of years ago, as far as light pollution goes on, the city incorporated LED directional lighting. That goes in all the roadways. They promote with developers, commercial developers, multifamily developers to use that same kind of lighting so it goes down and not up. The community stadium, it has the big lights because of the events that it holds there. That's just the nature of that beast. It's when we refine the plans and come back over and over again for rezonings and open houses, that's where the certainty starts to appear and people can have continuous input into what's happening there.
Thank you. And my last question. I don't know if the folks in the audience, but I've had the opportunity to travel to Calgary, to go to the University District area by the Children's, everyone's been by the Children's Hospital in Calgary. Is this kind of the concept, the idea, do you know what area I'm talking about, where they have like a Save on Foods, they got some students, got some housing, it's kind of a nice mixed use. I know every project's different. Is that kind of the concept, the idea we're looking at long term?
Well, sorry, can you bring up land use map? Thank you. We're in a first state that Lethbridge is not Calgary. We're not Vancouver. It's not the same market.
That's, I mean, you can't compare it, but
you can't compare it. I'd love to see that in Lethbridge. And as being a developer for 25 years now, we've always dreamed about those aspirations, but we can't make it happen in our current market. However, there's an opportunity in here that we get a mixed use. And here, it might not be vertical, but it might be horizontal mixed use, that we have residential and commercial in the same block. The higher density product will go up against the community stadium, and what I envision there would be 5 stories. We see a lot of that going on right now. They're all stick-built construction with about 100 units in each one.
So it's going to be, so I'm going to say that everything's different. I don't want to belabor the story. So long as, what I'm most concerned about is long as the neighborhood, especially the ones that join, are coming down the journey and they're going down there having a better understanding, because opinions are opinions, but long as they're based on fact and not misinformation. I just want to make sure that if there's something that's being misunderstood, that your organization, as a development, would address it. You may not agree, but at least the citizens know the facts versus, well, I heard, versus having facts. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the presenters and to the residents who've joined us here today. There's some good information and some good questions that we're able to ask. I will start with you, Mr. Kelly, since you're still up here at the podium. So we had a concern from one of our residents about the image plans not matching what the expectation of what's going to happen or what's going to be developed in the area. Can you perhaps address that? It sort of dovetails in with what Councillor Parker just said. Can you address that for us?
An outline plan is to be aspirational. Pie in the sky, what could happen? If there's enough snow on the ground, maybe the trail system can have people cross-country skiing on it. We're just showing...
I've heard these stories now for about a year.
Would you like to come up?
That's not cool.
Yes, sure. The trails, the variety of activity that we're trying to promote in the area for the well-being of people, to promote health in the neighborhood. That's great, but again, as we work down, we'll have better images because now we can take the land use concept and actually go and sell it. You know, we have to get people interested, like commercial developers, multifamily developers, and then they'll come and show us their images of what they'd like to be able to build there. But right now, I can't even go out and sell any of this because I need your approval.
Okay. What kind of businesses and activities are you expecting or hoping to attract to the area?
Grocery store, gas station, pharmacy, liquor store, the coffee shop. Those are some professional offices. We have a marvelous opportunity with the new medical training facility that's going in on the north part of the campus into an existing 30,000 square foot structure. I envision that there has to be some spin-offs from that with those professional people that are there.
Okay, and while you've been talking about this and having these at the community information sessions, you've had some feedback that this is what people are looking for in the area as well.
There's been a lot of positive feedback when we're at the open houses. It's unfortunate the silent majority aren't here to speak about that, but people are looking for these things that help them out. There isn't a grocery store south of Whoop Up Drive in West Lethbridge. This would be a real good opportunity.
Okay. One more question then, and then I'll jump out of the queue. Tell me about the special study area, because that is sort of the long-term out. There's a great deal of work still to be done here. What needs to be completed, and what's the estimated timeline? How far is that out from development? What kind of work still needs to be done in that area?
The first thing is that, as I had mentioned before, there's a constraint on the sanitary system in the main sanitary sewer line that's in University Drive and crosses along Whoop Up to the other side of the river. That has been identified in the offsite levy review. It's one of the higher priorities. The city is going through a review of the whole offsite levy now over, I think, starting in September. And then we'll see where it falls out. But it's not just to benefit the development here, it's to benefit further development in the south end of West Lethbridge. The other component is feasibility of a new pump station that would be required in this special study area that would move sewer and stormwater back out to University Drive. That's a piece of infrastructure that after the developer would build it, would be turned over to the city. And we want to ensure, as a developer, that whatever we're turning over to the city, it's not a liability back to the city, that it's not economically feasible for them to sustain. Third is another biophysical site assessment in the area to ensure that we further identify as I call the bugs and bunnies, the sensitive species of fauna in the area, which we know is mostly below the top of bank area, but also to establish firmly what the top of bank area is, and we have a firm setback from there. And after all those are done, we will be coming back here for your consideration and recommendations on to City Council.
Okay, so for my own clarification then, that sanitary sewer line and that stormwater offsite levies are going to cover the cost of that, and then that's turned back over to the city? Like the developer will assume that cost and then come back to the city?
The upgrade of the sanitary sewer is part of an offsite levy project.
Okay, okay.
The pump house is internal and a cost to the developer.
Okay, so the developer will pay for that, then turn that back over to the city when it's done.
Correct.
The other is the project. Okay, thank you. I'll step out for now.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you again. So Ms. Gutzel, just to remind us, as was said earlier, these studies are aspirational. They are there to sort of give a plan that then allows the city to do more work, that then results in the first zoning to be done, that then has to come back to council. The public can respond again. So there is a process that if this moves forward, because this is non-statutory, then we move to the statutory level of plans, et cetera. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that's correct. It'll come back for rezoning.
So there's certainly more time, and that would be a hearing, public would again be heard, et cetera. I've also seen you taking copious notes, as were all of we. So your department is using this opportunity and all opportunities to listen to the residents and to help that guide you, if possible, in the process. So, you know, if they see something and you're like, oh, we didn't think about that, your department will be using that information in this process.
Yes, because the city's work doesn't stop after the rezoning. So all the civil infrastructure eventually becomes the city's responsibility. So all the road designs will come through our standard process. They'll be reviewed. There'll be discussions. So like the intersection on Riverstone Boulevard, look at making that intersection safe as we can, address, you know, if we can, any concerns about the traffic on Riverstone Boulevard. So that kind of thing still has to happen as part of a development.
So even though a developer builds something, we do our utmost to make sure nothing is built that is going to cause accidents, that's going to cause a headache to the public, as much as possible.
Yes, because although the developer builds it and pays for it, it gets turned over to the city and becomes the city's responsibility. So we want to ensure that all our standards are being met when we're going through that process.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry you sat down because I do have a question for you about, in your document you say there's architectural design requirements. I did not see as I read through, does that apply only to residential or to that bit commercial space as well? Because that was one of the concerns from the community was, you know, like we look out, we see grass, we like the grass, we don't want to see ugly. So if you're going to have architectural design, does that apply to the commercial?
Yes, absolutely, because this, again, having done other developments.
And not that I think businesses build ugly, because they don't.
Well, some do, but.
He said that, not me.
We're trying to create a neighborhood that is aesthetically pleasing. It might not be pleasing to everyone because we all have different tastes, but it's a way to put controls in place to, Riverstone had architectural controls, the Crossings has architectural controls, every neighborhood, most of the new neighborhoods in town have architectural controls, which have also been applied over to cities. We see in other jurisdictions, the Calgarys and Edmonton, how much effort goes into the aesthetics of the commercial, because typically the commercial is the front door into the neighborhood, so they want to set a tone and a feel of what the neighborhood would be like to live in.
And again, we're at the very beginning of a process if this moves forward. And as that process moves forward, you would still be engaging the residents around that area, in fact, all of Lethbridge in that, as you're moving forward on anything through the zoning process, et cetera.
Rezoning, we have an active website. We've been promoting it on the website. We've been directing people to the website. You know, communication is two ways. We put it out, we put it out because we want to be engaged. So we're creating an opportunity for them.
Okay, thank you. And either Ms. Gitzel or Ms. Gehring, you know I'm going to ask my favorite question. Does this fit into our average density within the community? Is it higher density than we're used to seeing, or is this lower density that we're being projecting? So again, trying to make it equal to all the neighborhoods. How's the density fit into the city average? You had to have known my density question was coming.
So this is definitely higher than what we would see in a traditional neighborhood. We're working through right now with the Crossings, and so we might see similar densities from the Crossings to this particular development. But yeah, based on what Mr. Kelly comes back with at rezoning, that would be when we would be able to tell.
Know more about that. Any concerns at this level with higher density here from infrastructure, from anything like that?
No, this fits with multiple municipal development plan policies in terms of trying to increase density where we have servicing capacity, and we do here. And so it's a really good opportunity.
Okay, thank you. And if I can ask one more question, Mr. Chair? And this would be anyone who spoke. The reason I've been asking, and we've all been asking some of the questions, is to try to better explain the process, that this is very early, this is aspirational. A lot of your questions cannot be answered till later on. Does anyone just feel a little more or a little less concerned hearing the process, or have we not in any way answered some of your questions? Yeah, you can be the spokesperson. I'm sure I'll hear from anybody. If they disagree, I'll hear from them later.
I really am not the spokesperson, but I'm happy to hear that there's this right on, right off, because to me that says what I was hoping for, which was another exit. rather than having the bathtub drain into the sink. Because that's how, when they put the maps up, that's exactly what I see, is it's going to just drain onto Riverstone Boulevard. So I'm happy to see that. I'd heard it before, and that had been what my follow-up question was going to be, because I just don't understand why, if that's what's going to be there, why isn't it what's being presented? And I think my natural gut feeling is because it doesn't want to be on paper so that somebody would have to answer for that.
Oh,
so if it's
remember,
not,
every video here lasts forever as well.
oh. No, but do you know what I mean? Like if it's on the plan, because when the plan was first put out at the first open house, it was supposed to be single-family residential on the flip side of the berm, so on the north side of Riverstone Boulevard, to back onto that beautiful green strip that we have. And slowly, through the 3 progressions, it's gone up to no higher than 3 stories of multiple units, again, which I'm really not opposed to. My real concern is it's hard to make that left turn onto Riverstone Boulevard towards University today.
But do you feel a little more comfortable, having heard the discussion here today, knowing it's just part of a process, that this document, when the zoning comes, there'll be another level of understanding?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, definitely. The more information I'm given, the better I feel. There was a gentleman that did talk about, like when we first got notice of this, it was 2 days before a meeting, and I just heard it from a neighbor. And so I actually walked down to about 100 houses and knocked on the doors and asked, do you know this is going on? This was an open house. And I think 3 people knew it was going on.
I'm going to recommend that when we're done this conversation, you should stay for the land use bylaw project conversation, where that's what's probably going to be discussed, is some of those issues about how do we get better notification for every project.
Okay, sure. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And
I think.
I'm going to stop because I've already had my 2 questions, which became 4.
Yeah.
Somebody else may ask the next question.
That's
But
right.
I will step out. I won't push my luck. Thank you.
And we do have another agenda item that we'll have to deal with too, so we'll keep on moving along. And to Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you, Chair. This to the city manager designate, which I'm going to guess will be Mr. Sanchez, but I might be wrong. So we've had some concerns about emergency safety response, getting into the area. Do we have any concerns based on what we currently have with regards to that emergency access?
So at this point, based on the land use concept that has been presented, the staff have reviewed, and we believe we have enough information to move to the next step. Like Ms. Costello explained before, next step is when we have all the details about the units, how many units, where they are. That's what will go then to drawing the PRT and the DRC, and then we get fire, we get all the other departments to actually provide the details once we know more about what is being presented. But so far, what we have today, we are okay with what is being presented.
Okay, so we've got enough information to move forward to talk to those emergency services then to get more details on how they feel about what this looks like.
That's correct.
So that they will have feedback on that then once they take a look at this. Okay.
Yes.
Next question on that then, and again, Mr. Sanchez, I'm going to guess this is you, but we did hear comments about how this increase in population on the west side will affect Hoop Up Bridge. So what is our current traffic capacity on that? How far are we out from meeting that capacity? And how is this going to affect capacity on Whoop Up Drive?
So I will have Mr. Sanaman probably expand a little bit. I will say that what we have today in terms of capacity of Woodwood Drive is based on the, again, back to what I said before, outline plans, traffic, TAA's information that we know today. There are some capital projects that are being presented in the future in terms of expanding the off-ramps and actually helping with the flow through Woodwood Drive. But that's what Adam can probably expand a little bit more.
So this one here, we're probably best to go and look at think of the transportation master plan in terms of kind of the city full build out horizon. yes, this is a new neighborhood that's coming online that wasn't planned at the time of the Transportation Master Plan, but looking at that full build-out horizon, thinks of everything out to the city limits. So it suggests that and the Transportation Master Plan, as far as Whoop-Up Drive itself and the bridge, suggests that we're not at the point where we need a wider bridge there. At some point, we're going to need a third river crossing. That'll probably be in the likely 2040s. But we continue to kind of just march along and monitor into the future. And as we continue to update the Transportation Master Plan over time, we'll see how the impacts are. But there's unlikely to have any significant impacts or any causes to say that it's at capacity really quickly because of this new development.
Okay, but it's being considered and it's being looked at then? Like the whole of the transportation in the area is being considered and looked at?
That's right. So it's, like I said, part of the Transportation Master Plan. We've also had the Whoop-Up Drive Interchanges Functional Planning Study, which has a number of recommendations, and as Joel mentioned, capital projects coming up. So, yeah, we're keeping an eye on Whoop-Up Drive and the situation there, and making sure that people can still get across the river.
Okay, thank you very much. And then one final comment, Mr. Chair, if I may. There was an individual who was concerned about the crime in Varsity Village, and I'd like to connect with you before you head out today. Sitting on the Police Commission, that was not brought to our attention, and I'm curious as to what that report is because I was unable to locate it. And we do get those crime reports every Police Commission meeting. So if before you go, we could just chat over here real quick, and I'll get you my card because I do want more information on that to take back to the Police Commission. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I see none. I have a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council approve the University of Lethbridge South Campus Outline Plan Part A, Land Use Concept, as provided in Attachment 2, with the exception of the special study area on page 12 of Part A of the Outline Plan, which will require an amendment at a later date. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you to the presenters and the residents that came forward today. We certainly appreciate that. Your comments are appreciated and they are heard. As we know, our staff were making notes on this, and I know that the university group was also making notes on this so that we can see what we can do to move this forward. Process-wise, if this motion is approved here today, it will move on to council for discussion, and then it will come back for rezoning, and there will still be more opportunities for public feedback and for public to address any concerns or issues that they might have. So again, this is the start of the process and the beginning of addressing community comments and issues. We are doing our due diligence at this point to see how this might move forward or how it may not move forward. But this is right now the start of the process. And again, I appreciate everybody coming and speaking to this today. I see Councillor Crowson has an additional comment.
Councillor Crowson.
I, too, would like to thank everybody for coming. Many of the questions you asked cannot be answered until the process gets going. And I know it will seem backwards in many ways, but that is the way the process works. And that's why there are so many different levels to the process. This, again, just sets out the one or larger policy, and then we do go into the details. And then if we approve this, then staff can go into some of the details that will answer some of the questions that people have been asking. So this starts a process. This is in no way the end and not the final either. So I will be supporting this, though I greatly appreciate and hope we will be able to answer some of the questions as we move forward.
And I also echo the sentiments of having people come here. That's a very important part of the process, and I thank you for being here. Unless there are any other questions, that was your final call for the vote. All in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much. We will now, do we want to take 2 minutes? Let's do 5. We'll take a 5-minute break and be right back. Because I think Patty's got to pee. Oh, turn that off. Yeah. Welcome back to the meeting. We'll continue on. Ross Kilgore. Oh, there you are. I couldn't.
Good afternoon, and thank
Welcome.
you, members of the committee. So I am one of the two project managers on this project. Genesis couldn't be here today. So I'll start with a just very brief refresher on the project background, and then the bulk of the presentation will be an update on this project, and specifically phase 2. Then we'll just finish off with some next steps. So as a quick refresher, this is the first time in about 40 years that we've started from scratch with a new land use bylaw. Our current one has been incrementally updated many times over the years. And so it's a really big opportunity for us to take a fresh look at what we're regulating, why we're regulating it. Do we still want to be regulating those things? Are there incidents of red tape that we can cut? And what are the types of development that businesses and members of the public want to see delivered today, and how can we write rules to deliver that? We've been before SPCs and Council on a number of prior occasions, as listed on this slide. Most recently in December 2024, when City Council approved the Phase 2 Public Engagement Plan. So we've now completed delivery of that engagement, and we're going to be updating you on how that went and what we plan to do next. This is an overview of the overall project timeline. And so today we're just focused on this part, phase 2. So this focused on engagement on all the topics except for social uses, which was covered in phase 1. So zooming into sort of a closer look at the content of the phase 2 engagement, we split the engagement delivery up into 2 parts, 2A and 2B. So phase 2A gathered residents' input on key topics, whether those topics are considered issues by the community, and the amount of change the community would support to address those topics. Then during the engagement pause in the middle, around about April, May, we stopped engaging for a few weeks, kind of went quiet, and in that time we were working feverishly behind the scenes to review what we'd heard in phase 2A, come up with some proposed changes for the new land use bylaw, and then based on those proposed changes, creating the content for phase 2B engagement to share with the public our proposals and get their responses to that. So these are the key topics that phase 2 engaged residents on. Obviously the land use bylaw is a very sort of long and complex document, so we tried to make our engagement really user-friendly, drawing out the key topics that people would be most interested in and making it easy for them to choose which engagement events to take part in based on their interests. So obviously if they're in downtown BRZ, they might be interested in the downtown topic. If they're a housing developer, they might be interested in neighbourhood housing types and so on. We used a range of engagement methods, summary shown on this slide, and I'll go through these one by one with a bit more detail. So the first method was online surveys. Phase 2 included 3 online surveys, one in January, February, one in March, April, and one in June, July. The surveys started at a very high level with the first survey, identifying people's aspirations and concerns about Lethbridge today and in the future. The second survey moved down to a bit more detail to focus on specific issues and opportunities with the land use bylaw. And then the third survey in phase 2B shared the proposed changes we'd come up with and sought to understand the level of support for those changes from the public. We held 6 workshops overall. 4 of those were 2-hour in-person workshops, like you can see in the image here in March. We held a targeted Indigenous workshop in June and a workshop with Build in April. The 2-hour workshops were on specific topics, including downtown, parking, local businesses and the economy, and neighbourhoods and notifications. So this allowed people to choose the topic or topics that they were most interested in, and each workshop contained a range of in-person group activities that encouraged discussion and development of ideas. we're very grateful to all the people who took part. It's certainly a big time commitment to come down and spend 2 hours or more with us. We also held 17 different pop-up events. So this is where we go out to different locations, try to reach people where they're at, going about their daily lives, rather than expecting them to come to us. And it makes it easy for them to get involved. So we visited a range of locations, set up a table, poster boards, handed out postcards and so on, had conversations with people. We went to a number of places, including the visitlethbridge.com arena, senior centres, a powwow, Home Garden Leisure Show, the YMCA, the U of L, the Polytechnic, CD Saturday, and various others. So we reached over 900 people that way. We held 2 in-person open houses in February and June at the Galt Museum. And then for the first time, and in response to Council's recommendations, we also held a virtual online open house in June. So these events gave people opportunities to ask questions of the project team and discuss any concerns they have in person. We held 20 meetings with different community organizations. So this was kind of an open call that we put out through various advertising channels and through our email newsletters as well, inviting people to host us if they were interested. So we would go out to these organizations, to their board meetings and so on, present to them on the project, and then have an open discussion with them about the project and their interest in it. So we reached over 280 people through this method as well. And then we produced and published 2 videos on the city's YouTube channel, and then these were shared through social media as well. The first video gave an overview of phase 2 and what the engagement opportunities would be. And then the second gave examples of how the land use bylaw can affect people's lives, so residents, business owners, and so on. And the object there is just to kind of connect people to the land use bylaw, make them see why they should care, why they should get involved in the engagement. Following on from the Decoding Social Uses paper that we published in phase 1, in this phase, because it covers a lot more topics, we researched, wrote, and published 6 decoding papers that you can see here. So topics like decoding housing, decoding downtown, and so on. These documents were really an innovative approach to trying to level the playing field between engagement participants and city staff. So all of the in-depth research we've done over the past couple of years on this project and even before the project on these topics, we were able to share that information with the public as well. So, for example, all the best practice research we've done, looking at what other municipalities have done on these different topics, gathering data from our own internal systems about the types of applications we're getting for development, rezonings, and so on. The waivers we're being asked to grant people, all of that information can go into these documents in kind of a accessible, user-friendly way. And then people who are particularly interested in a specific topic can see what we are thinking, what we've been researching, what all the city data is on that topic. So when they take part in engagement, they've got kind of the same information that we have. So obviously this is kind of a more specialized engagement method that takes a bit more time, but still these were downloaded over 200 times. So this is the overall totals for the phase 2 engagement. So 57 activities and over 3,300 participants. And note that these figures don't include internal engagement with city staff, which was also delivered in this time. So certainly I think this was a really comprehensive engagement effort and probably the most, the biggest engagement effort that I've been involved in my time with planning and design. So moving on to our communications effort. So this was all about trying to get people knowledge about the project, how it could affect them, and trying to encourage people to be involved in the engagement activities. I'd say as just kind of an overall point, we essentially left no stone unturned in terms of communications options. Everything we could think of, we tried. I won't go line by line through this table here, but I'll just highlight a few innovative firsts. So one was that we sent an ad out with every city utility bill, so both physically in the mail and via email for where paperless billing is used. So reaching virtually every address in the city, over 41,000 addresses. We placed a full-page advertorial in the Lethbridge Herald, which you can see in the bottom right image. So that's something we haven't done before. Essentially, it gets into a bit more depth than you would get with just placing an ad, and again, just tries to interest people in the project. And then we placed 6 A-frame advertisements, like you can see in the top right image, in various high-traffic locations around the city, so places like parks, the YMCA, and so on. And because it has a QR code on it that asks people to snap with their phone to fill out the online survey, we were able to track how many times that was being used. So we could see over time that these were being successful and that a handful of people every day were filling out the survey from these links. So really, it was a great communications effort, and would like to thank Sarah Peters and Megan Williams in particular for their outstanding work on this. I mentioned earlier the engagement pause between 2A and 2B. So during that time, behind the scenes, there was an enormous amount of research conducted by planning and design staff, not just the project team, but all staff that were available. So we want to thank them for that. In some cases, people were going literally parcel by parcel through different areas of the city, researching the existing conditions and the approved uses so that we could make sure we weren't proposing anything that was going to create non-conforming uses. We also had people contacting other municipalities and industry to research best practices. The core project team then held a series of 12 intensive internal workshops to review those findings from Phase 2A, produce the draft recommended changes for the new land use bylaw, and to check these potential changes against the existing conditions in the city. So, and sometimes there was a lot of incremental going back and forth just to develop those recommendations. And then based on those recommended changes, we produced the Phase 2B engagement materials. So that's the engagement. So what did we hear from all this, this engagement effort? Well, the detailed findings obviously are in the What We Heard report, which is in your agenda package. There's also a shortened kind of executive summary version of that as well, because the full report is nearly 100 pages long. But just briefly, some of the overall sentiments, I would say generally we heard a good level of support for the proposed changes. So generally making the land use bylaw more user-friendly, easier to use for the public. Support for tackling housing affordability, which was something we heard continuously through our conversations with people. Support for cutting red tape for businesses, so cutting down on the need for things like change of use permit applications and rezoning applications and so on. We heard support for removing parking minimums for non-residential uses, and we've proposed to keep but lower parking minimums for residential uses. We heard a balance of opinions on this, including people who felt that we should go further and remove parking minimums for residential uses, and some people that felt they should stay the same as they are right now. So we think from hearing that balance that we are striking the right balance there. And then we heard support for our proposed modest changes to how we notify people about applications, including, for example, placing some of those A-frames on properties where they've applied for a rezoning application. So looking at the context of Phase 2 and how it fits in with what's coming up next, our planned next steps. So obviously right now we're at that stage of reporting back to Council. Following the election, we're proposing to orient the new council to the project in January. We will be working on drafting the new land use bylaw and working with a legal consultant on that. Then at the end of that process, when we have a complete draft that we think we're happy with, we will go back out to the public with further engagement with the complete draft. There could be a bit of back and forth there where we're making changes to that draft based on their feedback. And then finally, we would bring the complete finalized draft back to City Council for one or more public hearings on that. And then obviously following that, there would be an implementation phase as well if it's passed by Council. So in conclusion, phase 2 of the project is now complete. We recommend that this committee recommend that council receive the What We Heard report for information and direct administration to orient the new council to the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. Before we get to questions from the council, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make a presentation? State your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Bridget Mearns, the Executive Officer of the Building Industry and Land Development Association, and with me today is the President of Build Lethbridge, Adam Bambrick, who is also Operations Manager with Van Arbor Homes. I've already included a letter and some of our recommendations that we've compiled based on what we've heard from our membership, as well as some specific workshops we've done. But before we get started on those, I do want to thank the project management team. As you saw here, there was a lot of engagement, and we were a part of that. And we want to thank Ross and Genesis and Angie and Maureen, everyone that came. They came to our Builder Council meetings, they came to our Developer Council meetings, and they helped us with workshops as well. So the engagement was incredible, and we really do appreciate that. We felt respected and heard. So that being said, on behalf of the Build Lethbridge Board and our members, I do want to give you some of this feedback, and this feedback reflects the perspective of experienced industry professionals, their planners, their builders, their developers, and it is aligned with the principles of sound urban planning and development, while considering the Lethbridge market specifically. So one of the first zones that we want to talk about is the overall support that we give to consolidating 16 existing residential districts into 5. This makes a lot of sense. This streamlines and is seen as a positive step towards simplifying the development process and supporting housing diversity. We do suggest that there is more work to be done on design standards, lot configurations, and housing types. They still require some differentiation across districts, and we even talked about some of those things like setbacks, as well as land coverage, and those things that we do continue asking for waivers, but we know that that's information that's being considered. The second issue is the secondary suites and the 2-unit dwellings. Survey responses from our members was mixed, but we did have a workshop, and it helped clarify our position, and participants do support secondary suites to be permitted, provided there are conditions. So just allowing them anywhere and everywhere isn't something that we consider to be a good idea. There needs to be more certainty for the community, more certainty for the developers, and more certainty for the designers. So there are certain considerations that can be, so they are permitted if. So you could look at lot sizes, you could look at density of a unit. So there's certain things that you could allow for permissive conditions to exist. For two dwelling units, we did receive unanimous support that be a permitted use. Allowing ADUs were supported, again, by conditions. We believe this promotes housing affordability, it does reduce red tape, and it aligns with emerging best practices. And we welcome the opportunity to work with the city to further those. Regarding short-term rentals, there was clear consensus that short-term rentals should remain discretionary across all residential districts. Parking was a topic, as you can imagine, that was the most diverse and detailed discussion that we had. Again, this is through our survey, but also the workshop that we had with our members. It was determined and revealed, and consensus around the blanket requirement of 1 stall per unit is too simplistic and may lead to unintended consequences in higher density infill and ADU-rich areas. We don't see this as being a necessary issue in single-family residence areas, but as density increases, the 1 parking per unit can be problematic for a variety of reasons, and we know that parking on streets already is a concern for citizens. You add density, and you're just compiling the problem. The market will self-regulate to some extent, but without clear minimums tied to housing type, location, bedroom count, builders will face uncertainty, and neighborhoods do risk overflow parking. The group considered more content-sensitive parking strategy that could look at is multi-unit versus single-family. It could look at infield versus greenfield, and there could be a flexible formula like 1.5, 2 stalls for a 2-bedroom unit. There are many different varieties that can be looked at, but we do think that needs to be investigated more. We think the current is too much. We think 1 is too little. There was one thing just in the definition that came up in our discussions, and that was the definition of multi-unit dwellings versus apartments. So under the new definitions, multi-unit dwellings would include apartments. It was suggested by our participants that that be defined separately. So it's very clear the difference between a duplex and a larger apartment structure. And finally, notifications. There was broad agreement and support for the city's proposed notification changes, including the notice of decisions post-approval, the pre-approval, and requiring signage on site for rezoning applications. That's a great idea and something we see is moving forward in making things more transparent and easy for community to get information. So, in general, Build Lethbridge supports the city's ongoing effort to modernize the land use bylaw. We believe the direction is broadly positive and in keeping with the contemporary planning goals. We encourage the city to maintain a flexible but responsive framework that reflects diversity of lot configurations, housing types, market realities in both infill and greenfield context. Again, I'd like to thank the city team for their genuine engagement with our members. And as a stakeholder group, we are committed to working together collaboratively with the administration as we move forward in the next phase.
Thank you, Ms. Mertz. Appreciate it. Is there anybody?
There is one thing I forgot to do, which is plug the Parade of Homes. So what we're talking about right now is the land use bylaw.
Is that you?
That is us. So the Parade of Homes is coming up September 13th to the 28th. And it really is a great way to visit our city and understand the housing types that exist. We have a duplex, we have a suited unit, and we have $1 million homes. We have them in Lethbridge and Coaldale in 9 communities. So it's a great way to understand how the city is growing, what the housing diversity types look like, and we invite you and the public to come and check that out.
Just pay the treasurer for the plug. Just kidding. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anybody else in the audience here wants to make a statement or once, going twice, going 3 times? Okay, we'll open this up to city council members. I guess Ross will probably want to pop up here for one quick moment. My first question, first a statement saying, my gosh, you guys have done a lot to engage. And I guess my first question is how yeah. The other question is how loud will you yell when someone says, I never heard about it?
Thank you for the question, Councillor.
It's not really, yeah.
Very loud, yes.
Yeah, okay. We just heard from Build, who's an important part of the community, and a lot of feedback from them. When you hear that and what they're proposing, how to the extent that you want to work with them, I would imagine it's very amicable.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, Build have been fantastic to work with through this phase. I think we met with them 4 times through this phase, and they were always keen to host us and have us come to their meetings and present, or to host a dedicated workshop with them, and that was invaluable for us. We need to make sure that these potential new rules work for what they want to build. We need to make sure that they work in terms of the costs of building and the economics of building, because if we want to see things like tackling housing affordability, then obviously they're an essential partner in that. And so we see this really as just an ongoing relationship. As we move into phase 3 and starting to actually draft some rules, it'll probably be an incremental process of moving back and forth with them, sending them drafts for their comments, identifying things that don't work, and improving the draft until everyone's happy with it.
Very good. Move on to questions. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. And I guess this, although Ms. Mayor spoke about parking and so forth, as you're well aware, it's a concern across the board. I'm intrigued to hear some of the options. Yes, 1 is probably too few, 2 might be too many. But are we looking at other strategies in terms of how parking is going to be impacted over the course of the next, say, 20 years while we still have cars, whether there are parking minimums or not. But are we thinking in terms of parking passes? Are we thinking in terms of different types of signage? What are the strategies that are being used to accommodate growth and development in inner city communities or inner city neighborhoods, and how are we going to accommodate, at least for the short term, increases in vehicles?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question, and it's obviously a big topic. We heard a variety of perspectives on this. We heard from some people who, build higher density style development in Calgary and Edmonton and so on, that said, we're building half a stall per unit up there, and we're struggling to rent out those spaces. Like, we can't even rent that number of spaces. Obviously, Lethbridge is different to that. And so how do we have requirements that work for all situations? A parking minimum is really just a floor, and anything above that, people can provide as much parking as they like. We spoke with various other municipalities that have removed their parking minimums entirely in the last 5 years or so. So we met with High River, Medicine Hat, Edmonton, Calgary, I think one other is at Beaumont as well, who had reduced their parking requirements. And generally what we hear is that they haven't seen a huge change in the amount of parking that's being provided from before they did that. So for example, in Calgary, they did a study where they looked at their development permits in the year before and after removing parking minimums, and they saw that, I think it was something like 81% of cases, they were still getting the same amount of parking provided. In another 9% of cases, they were having a bit less than they would have had before, and only in a few percent were they seeing zero parking provided in their commercial uses, for example. So typically what will happen is if you lower the parking minimum like we're proposing to do with residential, again, that's setting a floor of 1 stall per unit. But for a single detached home, I think any house builder who builds a detached house is going to provide a minimum of 2, just because that's what the market will expect. So there's that difference between what we're requiring as an absolute minimum versus what the market's likely to do just to attract buyers. So in terms of other things we can do to help manage parking, I know, for example, right now we have visitor parking permits in some areas of the city, like around downtown and the hospital. So that's always an option. If existing residents feel that they're being impacted, they can sort of club together and have that implemented. So that's certainly one option. But in general, we think the approach we're proposing is it kind of strikes that balance. Right now, we have a system where we're requiring minimums, which in some cases is just 1 space, like if it's a 1-bedroom apartment. But in other cases, it's 2 spaces we're requiring right now. So it's more of a sort of a harmonization of just a minimum of 1.
Mm-hmm. Just in final discussion on this, and I don't know whether it would be you or Ms. Mearns to perhaps comment on it or not, but there are options in some of these townhouse complexes, for example, where they have perhaps an additional half a dozen parking stalls, and if you want one, you can rent it in addition to your existing space that's provided. So is that part of the discussion, or is it part of the process that we're thinking about in terms of compelling some of the developers to say, provide for not only visitor parking, but parking that is available to people that want to purchase it? Is that part of the strategy or not?
That is not currently. It's certainly something we can look at. There is a certain amount of flexibility built into any parking minimum through the potential for waivers or variances. So we have that right now. Whether or not we allow waivers in the future in the new land use bylaw is another question.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for this. I mean, this was one of the first things this council did when we brought this forward at the operating budget to get this process moving. And we are now 3 years in and only another 1.5 years or so to go if this keeps moving forward. So, I mean, this is a huge project. But one of the things that you have is about making the land use bylaw simpler, more user-friendly, and that will also depend on the legal department, of course. but what's the process for keeping it user-friendly? Because when you look at what the land use bylaw was originally, it wasn't that much. And then it just kind of like, it became the catch-all to solve everything. So how do you create something? I mean, again, this is a 40-year change. How do you create something and then keep it that way?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question. A land use bylaw really is a kind of a living document, as we've seen with our current one, which has been updated every few years for the last 40 years. So I guess it's really on everyone involved in that process to try and keep it simple. One thing we can do is try to have it in an accessible way, the way that it's delivered. So for example, some municipalities now have a kind of online only land use bylaw so that you're just kind of clicking into the one piece you actually need. So for example, Edmonton's new zoning bylaw, if you were to actually go and print that off as one document, it'd be something like 1,100 pages. But in reality, when you use it on their website, you just go to the district that applies to your property and you know, it's a few pages long. So one of the things we're wrestling with right now is we're starting to figure out the structure of the new document. Is there's a balance between, do you keep the overall document short by just stating rules one time in one part of the document and then referring to that one section over and over from different places in the document, or do you repeat those rules in every district? The advantage of doing it the latter way is that if you know your property is zoned low density residential, you just go to that district and you've got all the rules you need in that one spot. So that's a little more user friendly, but it might result in a longer document. So we're trying to find that balance right now, and it'll be an ongoing process, I think, for the next few months.
And one of the things that people really want, and land use bylaws can create, is housing affordability. It's both about supply and demand. We need a lot more buildings, but it's also about the size. Will we actually be creating starter houses? Because we're missing starter, we're missing middle. So what we have now, so people know we have said they want that, but will we be creating a document that actually will create that? Because often what we say we want and what we create, there's disconnect.
Thank you for the question. So I think roughly around 70% of our residential land is zoned for low density residential. So it's really critical that we get those individual rules right for that district in the new land use bylaw. So things like the minimum parcel size, whether that's minimum parcel width or area, what have you, essentially the smaller you can make that, the less expensive the home is in terms of the land cost, at least. So there are things like that you can look at to try and at least allow for smaller starter homes to be economical. But we, again, have to work with Build on that to make sure we get that right, because there's no point in having rules that just aren't going to work with what the market wants to buy today.
And yeah, hearing both presentations today, I have to wonder how many of these starter homes we know we desperately need will meet the architectural details of the other project, but that's a different matter entirely. Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Kilgore, one question for you. It is such a large project. If people want to find out more information, go back and review some of what's already been done, where can they find that information?
The project website is getinvolvedlethbridge.ca/LUB for land use bylaw.
Okay, and all the information, all the papers, everything are all located on that so that people can go ahead and take a look at where we're at and what's already been done?
That's right. The What We Heard report is there. All of the panels from the open houses in this phase are up there, all the decoding papers and so on. You can also sign up on that page to our email newsletter, and then we'll keep you informed.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Mearns, if I may have a couple questions. Well, one. So, I mean, thank you very much for addressing the short-term rentals in your paper. That was very helpful to have some feedback on that. One thing that I was looking at, and I'm just wondering if you can clarify it for me, with the multi-unit dwellings versus apartments, and participants recommend defining apartment as a separate use. So are we looking at doing a definition for multi-unit dwellings and then a definition for apartments? Can you just help me understand that a little bit better?
So what's being proposed is that multi-use dwelling would include apartments. And so what they're suggesting is that because that includes apartments, a duplex is quite a bit different than an apartment.
So different definitions.
So have a multi-use dwelling and apartments.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It wasn't clicking for me. So thank you very much.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. One last question. Mr. City Manager, to Mr. Kilgore. Mr. Kilgore, you raised the issue of secondary suites, which has been an issue for certainly the real estate business in the city of Lethbridge. And I'm wondering if you could just expound on that a little bit to provide us with some insights into where we're going with secondary suites under the land use bylaw revisions.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So we looked at various options. In some municipalities, they're taking the approach of being super flexible by just saying dwelling units or homes are allowed in this district and they don't care what form it takes. We certainly haven't gone anywhere near that far. The feedback that we had from Build and from others was that they felt that secondary suites should remain a distinct use from two-unit dwellings, for example. So we have taken that approach and taken that feedback. So we are still looking at an approach where we would have detached homes being a separate use from suites, from two-unit dwellings, and that allows us to potentially set different requirements or rules for each of those uses. Certainly, I think what we're seeing is things like backyard suites or basement suites becoming more attractive as a mortgage helper for people to, again, tackle housing affordability. We've tried to be flexible with what we've seen in terms of rezoning applications in the last few years, where some infill developers in particular have started to come forward with a product like two-unit dwellings, so semi-detached homes with basement suites. Under our current definitions, we would have to define that as something like a fourplex or even an apartment building. So how can we make sure that the new land use bylaw is more flexible in that way, and we're not tying ourselves in knots, trying to decide what's townhouses with basement suites versus an apartment building versus a duplex with basement suites and so on. So the approach we're proposing is to essentially have anything more than two homes on a single parcel be defined as multi-unit dwellings. So we don't care whether it's 3, 4, 100 units, it would still be multi-unit. And then we would control other things through other requirements like maximum height, maximum density, and so on, separately from the definition.
Okay. Lastly, then, in regards to the process to designate a property secondary suite, and I don't know whether it would be you, Mr. City Manager, to Mr. Kilgore, or to Ms. Gehring, but in speaking with people in the real estate industry, they've indicated that it is extremely difficult to get an existing property rezoned as a secondary suite. So there's lots of movement towards illegal suites or just simply saying we've got additional capacity. So the whole discussions around summer kitchens and what has to be done, is there any thought to, I'm not going to suggest relaxing the regulations, but accommodating more uses of these so-called secondary suites?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so we are aware that there probably are many illegal secondary suites in the city. There are a number of hoops that someone might have to jump through to legalize that. Certainly the land use bylaw is just one step in that. Right now in the low density residential district, a secondary suite is a discretionary use, so it is allowed, but you would have to apply for development permit. It could be refused, or even if it's approved, it could be appealed against and overturned on appeal. So if we were to make it a permitted use, that would remove that one hurdle. But certainly then there's all these other things you'd have to look at, like potential building code related upgrades to that suite to bring it into compliance there. So we can't kind of make it easy overnight with the land use bylaw, but we can certainly remove some of the hurdles there.
Right, and we are consulting with other cities to determine how they define, how they permit, what they require. Some cities, I'm apprised, don't necessarily require separate heating units for one area of the building, the structure. So if it's a duplex, for example, a house with a downstairs suite, they don't require a separate heating unit entirely, so a separate furnace entirely. So are we looking in terms of perhaps modernizing the definition and modernizing how we legislate these particular units?
Thank you for the question. My understanding is that we can't change that here, but if anyone wants to correct me on that.
So there is a difference between what the building permit requires versus the development permit. I understand that perhaps in some municipalities, the Alberta Building Code is interpreted in different ways,
Right.
right? And so that's a separate discussion than what we're doing here with the land use bylaw.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That was very politically said. Who's doing it right, them or us?
Well, I'm sure we're all doing it right in our own minds.
Any other questions from my colleagues here? I see none. Therefore, I have a resolution from Councillor Crowson. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council 1 receive the Land Use Bylaw Renewal Phase 2, what we heard report as provided in Attachment 1 for information, and 2, direct administration to orient the new council to the project no later than Q1 2026. Councillor
So Mr. Westerson and I are having a word discussion. Is it orient or orientate?
Orient.
Okay,
I would say orient.
if you want to orient them. All I'll say is, yes, please, let's get moving on this. We need to get this done, and the new council absolutely would need to understand it. So yes, let's vote for this and move it forward, please.
Anybody else have a comment or debate? I just want to say to everybody that's been involved, I mean, the engagement is unbelievable what you guys have been going through. And I mean, you've been doing it for so long now. It's just, I wonder, when you go to sleep and dream, are you dreaming in a secondary suite? Anyway, with that, I believe the question has been called. All in favor? That passes. Okay, thank you. All right, I have a resolution from Councillor Deputy Mayor Nick Palladino to enter a closed session. All in favor? Yes. Okay, 353.
As per se.
Okay. We're ready to go. Chief? We're back. We have a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council, 1, forward this matter to the September 16th, 2025 closed meeting of City Council, and 2, authorize the City Manager to discuss this matter with the University of Lethbridge, and 3, direct that the confidential reports, documents, and discussions with respect to them, 7.1, University development remain confidential pursuant to Sections 28, Local Public Body Confidences, and 29, Advice from Officials of the Access to Information Act. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
I'll call for the vote.
Question's been called. In favor? And we are closed. Thank you. And adjourned. Closed and adjourned.